This video is brought to you by Law Excellence IAS Academy.
Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Deep Daily Editorial Enrichment Program of Law XR&D. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 1st July 2019. The first article for discussion, a thumbs down to unilateralism. So this article, we can connect it in economy. So economy is in GS paper 3, and in economy we can talk about multilateral and bilateral trade related issues. So in this context, you need to understand a bit background of it. So to promote free trade across the countries, there was an agreement before that is called GATT. This GATT, General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, is transformed into World Trade Organization. Under WTO, there is a dispute settlement system. It means if any country breaks the rules, obviously the matter will be going to this particular body as a complaint, and it will make a judgment onto it. When local procurement norms were created for solar panels by Indian government, then obviously it was settled in the dispute settlement body of WTO. So in this context, today the world is moving from multilateralism to unilateralism. So if you see WTO, IMF, World Bank, these all have signified multilateralism in economy. Today we are talking about regional comprehensive economic partnership or bilateral free trade agreements, and these all making the multilateral institutions irrelevant over a period of time. After the Trump has come up, he has started unilaterally imposing various sanctions and tariffs across various countries. In this case, United States has two organizations. One is US Trade Representative and US International Trade Commission. So this USITC has investigated the industrial and trade policies of India, and it clearly stated that Indian tariffs or duties which India is importing on various American goods is actually distorting the trade, or it is making disadvantages to United States of America. So in this context, there are three important issues this article analyzes. One is propriety, procedure, and substance. What is propriety? USITC, it has investigated India as per the United States laws. So who has to investigate India? As per the WTO norms and rules. And procedure, here any principle of natural justice says that the person who is a party to the case or organization that is party to the case cannot be a judge of this. In this case, USITC, it has become more a judge and also a jury and also a party. So in this context, there is no principles of natural justice followed. And finally, whatever the tariffs India is imposing, these are inconsistent with WTO rules and norms. So rather than taking the matter to WTO, USA is trying to act unilaterally to ensure that its interests are protected. So here, let us see how the tariffs of India are distorting. Let's take, if US wants to send Harley Davidson bike to India and sell it over here, India is importing 50% of the duty on it. So 100 rupees good is becoming 150 rupees. Now let us see how America is distorting the trade. So in agriculture, let's take, the cost is 100 rupees. So in this 50 rupees, America provides as a subsidy. It means the open market cost is 50 rupees. So when 50 rupees, it means the cost has become much cheaper. So when actual production cost is 100, it is being sold in the market at 50. So obviously if we don't create the tariffs to it, then the goods are going to flood Indian market. When they flood Indian market and available at cheaper prices, our farmers are going to get worst affected. So in this case, United States is also trade distorting through subsidies. India is trade distorting through tariffs. So when subsidy or input subsidy is very high, obviously the cost of the goods and services will be low, and it is going to affect developing country. The second is, if you take the farmers of India, the concerns more here are not about profits, not about luxuries. The concerns are more related to livelihood. So India always wanted at WTO to keep the farmer welfare and their livelihoods out of trade discussions. The next is adding value to a third innings. So Finland has become the chair or the president of European Council. So let's understand the structure of the Europe a bit. European Union, it is the normally used word, but it has got European Parliament, European Council, European Commission. So European Council, it consists of heads of the government. So all the countries, their presidents and prime ministers are the part of the European Council. It kind of gives a direction. It gives a philosophy, a principle. And then it need to be put into laws. It need to be put into policies by an executive arm that is called European Commission. And then the laws of the Europe, entire laws for the Europe, these have to be enacted by European Parliament. I can put it as European Council is kind of a direction giving body. I can compare it kind of a constitution. And the next is European Commission is an executive body. And then European Parliament, it is a legislative body. European Parliament is directly elected, and then European Commission is appointed by the European Parliament and also by the European Council. And all the heads of the government becomes the part of European Council. Now, let us see the structure. So, European Council consists of national leaders. It sets the priorities. And then 28 commissioners are the part of European Commission, and there will be a president to it. And then European Parliament appoints and scrutinizes the members of European Commission, and Council of Ministers also appoints and scrutinizes the European Commission. So European Parliament is directly elected, and this European Parliament, along with the Council of Ministers, they are the co-decision making bodies with regard to the budget of the EU or laws of the EU. Now, this article, what it talks about, that is European Union core values. Last year, European Council seat was with Romania. Next, this year it has come to Finland. Next, it goes to, that is, Croatia. So these three countries are together are called triad. Any decision has to be taken by the council. First, this triad has to consult with each other. So today, European Union is stated to be in crisis because of Brexit. In appendix, the following are discussed. The first is European Council, Finland wants to promote circular economy. Circular economy refers to recycling economy. It means plastic waste recycling, water recycling. So the major perspective is to promote a circular economy. And the next is free trade negotiations and human rights issues are the concerns with regard to India. And India European Union Free Trade Agreement is stuck on certain tariffs which India is imposing related to liquor and related to certain fruits. So this has to be addressed. And the next is the security cooperation within EU, climate change. These are also concerns for European Council as Finland stated it. Among members, this article is about G20. You know that G20 is an economic grouping. You can talk about this both in economy and also GS paper 2, international global group or global groupings. So this article, it says the importance of G20 economically, that is 85% of the global GDP comes from these countries. Previously, G7 was stated to be the economic engine of the world, but today the place is being occupied by G20. So the emerging economies are becoming strong, and these are becoming the pillars of the global growth today. In this case, the G20 summit happened at Osaka in Japan. So in this case, the President Trump and Xi Jinping of China both have met, and they are putting an end to this tariff war. And the second, Indian Prime Minister and US President also met. They also have postponed whatever the trade disputes which are existing between the countries. But the most important thing is the growing issues are economic losses due to climate change, or the security issues which are endangering the so-called as economic system, and the technology, especially 5G technology and the security challenges which it is going to pose, these are not yet discussed. So the data localization issue which India is preaching for was opposed by the Japan, and Japan Prime Minister Mr. Shinzo Abe stated that there has to be a data free flow. It means that the data which is collected in one country can be stored in the servers of the other country. So India is opposed to this and it considers data as a new wealth, and it has to be stored in the servers of the country where it has originated. That is one thing which is discussed. Now, G20 objective is to ensure economic growth and stability. Now, if it is more and more looking into the issues of security, etc., probably it may deviate from its core objectives. That's why it is stuck to this. The next part of this is it's time to act, not to do more research. This is about new national education policy and higher education in India. So initially, when Prime Minister Nehru's period, the strong foundations were laid to the higher education in India. But over a period of time, these foundations got weakened. The quality and access to higher education got reduced. Today we have privatization of higher education, more and more private universities and also foreign universities are coming up. In this context, how are what the problems and challenges, how shall we address them? So obviously this come into the GS paper too. Under governance we have education as the topic. So there are various committees appointed on education in India. Recently, we have Kasturi Rangan committee which has prepared the draft education policy. Before that, TSR Subramaniam committee. Before that, you have Eshpal committee and then Sam Pitroda National Knowledge Commission. So like this, there are many committees which are there on education. So what the author suggests is, it is the time we shall get into action rather than discussing what is good, what is right and what is wrong. In this case, the biggest challenge of the higher education in India is insufficient allocation of funds. If you take United States of America, there is industry and university collaboration. So Harvard, Stanford, these kind of industries gets their most of the funds from the local establishments, especially the industry. And if you talk about West Virginia University, it gets it most of the funds from automobile industry like that. And the next is in India, the access to higher education has decreased because of affordability. So the state has to make necessary arrangements to increase the affordability, and there is a target that by 2050 we want to achieve at least 50% of the people, 2030 50% of the people enrolled in these colleges and schools. And next is equality. In any academic system, the quality depends upon the number of professors or teachers existing for number of students. And the second is quality of research. In this case, the author talks about a differentiated academic system. It means research institutions and then institutions which are meant to promote jobs. All these have to be separated from each other. It means there has to be some niche institutions which have to engage themselves in research, and after that we have to have certain colleges and universities which can work for job related skills to the people. So this is called differentiated academic structure. And the next is University Grants Commission and AICTE, and then Medical Council of India, Dental Council of India. So the regulation of the higher education in India is very much fragmented and governance is highly bureaucratic. So ensuring proper governance, that is amalgamating all these things and providing from one superstructure, it was recommended by Eshpal committee first. So these kind of governance reforms are expected to happen in higher education. So in this case, what are the recommendations? Improve funding. So in this case, draft national education policy stated that National Research Foundation establishment is a positive step. Increase access, affordability and quality of higher education, and we shall focus on student outcomes and employability, world-class research establishment, promote autonomy and innovation by reforming the regulation and governance. Finally, there has to be a coordination between various regulatory institutions like UGC, ICTE, etc. And then today we are focusing on skill development, research, and academic work. A better coordination can be anticipated between these things. Next is nuclear when India has an ocean energy. So why nuclear? So there is a three-stage nuclear program which was originally devised by Homi Bhabha. India is abundant with natural resources of thorium. So we have three stage. First stage, we have pressurized heavy water reactors. These PHWRs, they use uranium 235, and in the second stage, in this we get the plutonium as an outcome. In the second stage, we have fast breeder reactors. We keep plutonium, and then outside this you keep 2U-33 and then thorium. So it means the fast breeder reactor, it produces more plutonium from the thorium, and then it can be used into the next level. So this thorium is converted into U-233, and this thorium also gives plutonium. It produces more fuel than it consumes. That's why it is called breeder reactor. In the third stage, we use the U-233, which is coming from the breeder reactor, and we make our energy self-sustainable nuclear energy. But there are certain myths. The nuclear energy is cheap. No. To establish one nuclear reactor, it's thousands of crores of expenditure. So it means unless the nuclear reactor is complete, we cannot bring in production. In the case of solar or wind energy, you don't need to complete the plant. You erect a panel and you get the power from it. But however, the problem with solar and wind energy is it is inconsistent. And the nuclear energy can pose certain risks, especially we saw in Japan. That is, what is that? Daiichi Sankyo, and then we saw in 3 Mile accident, Chernobyl accident, all these are there. So in this context, the safety wise nuclear energy is unwarranted, and then cost wise also today it is unviable. So the alternative which we can explore, which is consistent, if we can develop the right kind of tools, ocean energy can be very cheap, and it is going to be natural with least no risks at all. That's what this article talks about. Start with the preventive care. So here, the Mr. Pratap C. Reddy, chairman of Apollo Hospitals, what he says is, India has three-tier structure of healthcare: primary, secondary, tertiary. So now the tertiary care hospitals more are behaving as the primary care hospitals. If you take All India Institute of Medical Sciences, it is more kind of glorified primary health center rather than a research-oriented tertiary center. So what Mr. Pratap C. Reddy recommends is continuum care. It means ensure proper record maintenance from primary to the tertiary level, and organize the medical care in such a way that there shall not be untoward burden on the tertiary health care in India. So this is what is called continuum care. And also he talks about Ayushman Bharat, which is an insurance support for healthcare delivery to the poor people. So almost 40% of the Indians will be covered through Ayushman Bharat. And the next is National Health Policy. It talks about health and wellness centers. So these health and wellness centers redefines the health in a very positive light. These are the points which we talk about. And next is new framework. This is about mutual funds. So the mutual funds are facing certain challenges today. So it's the time we need to regulate them. Recently, SEBI has released the rules for the regulation of the rating agencies. In the same line, it also released certain rules for mutual funds. Obviously, this will be related to GS Paper 3 economy and resource mobilization. So, mutual funds, are there instruments of loan or instruments of investment? So how mutual funds work? Let's take, there is a fund created and all of us invest the money into it. So there will be a fund manager to it. This fund manager, who is a knowledgeable person with regard to investments, he will invest all money on our behalf, and whatever the profits which it comes to the fund, based on that our investments gets enriched. This is how the mutual funds work. So mutual funds are meant for investments. Here, between mutual fund managers and the owners of those banks, institutions who are called promoters, there is kind of an agreement which is being formed that is called standstill agreement. The standstill agreement is going to keep the mutual funds at risk. So the money which is collected in the mutual fund is lended to its promoters through these standstill agreements. So mutual funds are investment tools, not the lending tools. Saying that, SEBI stated them as illegal. And the second, 20% shall be invested in government securities, which stated to be the safest. And the second, there shall not be excessive exposure to a particular sector. The maximum exposure is related to 20%. And with regard to housing finance, the maximum exposure is limited to 10%. So diversification of investments, investment in government securities, and making the standstill agreement as useless. This is what are the conditions. And the next, coming to Indian Express, Maratha quota verdict. There are still certain questions which are being seen in the Maratha quotas. One is, are there exceptional circumstances in making these reservations crossing the Indira Sahani judgment by the Bombay High Court? In Indira Sahani judgment, the Supreme Court has stated that total reservations shall not cross 50%. And what are those exceptional circumstances? Second, Mandal Commission, Khatri Commission, Bapat Commission, they all did not recommend to include Marathas under the OBC category. Now, what the Maratha government did, it has created a separate category that is called socially and educationally backward classes, SEBC. In this category, only group that exists is the Maratha group. Then, if they are backward, why can't they be made as a separate group in OBCs by increasing the total quota under OBC itself? And the next is data to determine the backwardness of Marathas. Is this accurate? Is this thoroughly gone through? So these questions that need to be answered, probably this is expected to be challenged before the Supreme Court. Now today, whatever happened in Maharashtra can have repercussions in every state. So politically significant communities, they can start asking for reservations stating that they are educationally backward. So in this scenario, the National Commission for Backward Classes, it was not consulted by the Maharashtra government. You know, 102nd Amendment Act, it has created 338B, which has created National Commission for Backward Classes, which has a constitutional body. So was it consulted, or is it necessary to consult that? These all the questions, they still remain to be answered. Now, there is another article in the same page. This is about Indo-Pacific. What does this word Indo-Pacific signifies to different people? So, America, in its strategic document, it has used the word Indo-Pacific. So, USA National Security Strategy, in this, the Indo-Pacific was frequently used. Previously, it was using the word Asia-Pacific. Now, for Australia, Japan, US, India, this word has different meanings. For Australia, so for Julian Gallard, she spoke about strong and secure. It means it is a strategy for Australia to serve its own national interest. So Australia is looking for increasing importance of that is Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean. The reason is many of the important energy lines runs through this Strait of Malacca, etc. And added to this, in this century, the ASEAN has become very strong economic force. So based on this, it has called it as Indo-Pacific. Second is, when we come to Japan, the strategic importance is significant over here. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe stated that broader Asia in the confluence of two seas. This is the statement which he made. So he was talking about Quad. So USA and then Japan, India, Australia shall come together. In that context, he was proposing Indo-Pacific. So for him, Indo-Pacific is a region of freedom and prosperity. USA more or less sees it in the same dimension. But however, what is Indo-Pacific? What is the geography of it? According to it, comes from the east coast of, that is west coast of India to the west coast of USA. So till then, that is what is the Indo-Pacific. For India, the geography is not that. For India, Indo-Pacific is not against someone. Indo-Pacific is about something. What is that something? Openness, freedom of navigation, and then centrality and unity of ASEAN. And these are the various things which we are talking about. It's spoken by none other than Prime Minister at the Shangri-La Dialogue. For us, Indo-Pacific is expected to be a peaceful region. So, the next part, ideas page, a digital power. So, this article is about various digital programs which are launched by Government of India. So, first is the problem is digital divide. To build the digital divide and to take the digital services to the rural India, BharatNet is being developed. And the second is to educate the people about emails and using mobile phones in Gramin, in rural India. Prime Minister Gramin Disha is there. And for public service delivery of the goods and services of the government, both central and the state, an app has come up that is called Umang app. So, and many of the services today, like pensions, are delivered, you linking them to the Aadhaar. In this case, Jam Trinity, which has become a role model for the countries to deliver the services, especially the payment related services. Jandan, Aadhaar, mobile phone. These three together is called Jam Trinity. So direct benefits transfer is one of the reasons for the reduction in leakages and curtailment of corruption. And the second, the electronics manufacturing is also taking boom in India. Previously, India used to import all its mobile phones from China. Today, India has got more than 50 plus manufacturers based in the country. And finally, the e-governance is not about public service delivery alone. Today, government is trying to use artificial intelligence and data mining, etc., to improve the quality of services and also internal functioning of the government. This is the next step which it is looking at. And finally, thank you very much. Have a great day.